Off the Ivy, a Chicago Cubs podcast with Dan Bernstein, Matt Abaticola, and Cody Del Mendo on 312 Sports.
Off the Ivy on 312 Sports. Bernstein, Abaticola, Del Mendo. The Cubs 2-0 losers on a weird weather night last night. And I actually heard PCA getting booed. And then I'm thinking, did Cody go to the game? Is he actually there? I was looking.
I would never boo Pete Henry Crow-Armstrong.
Let's be clear too, because I did after you texted me, I rewound it to watch. It was one guy. It was also the same guy who at PCA's first at bat yesterday yelled overrated multiple times. So
are you sure? You sure it's the same guy? Okay, good.
It's one guy. It was one person who booed him. He called him overrated in his first at bat. There were a lot of empty seats. You heard a lot more ambient noise than you normally would.
Yeah, the crowd mic was jacked
game.
up.
So
yeah. Okay.
It was one guy who booed on a bunt play that was actually a smart play if it lands. So we'll let that guy have his moment.
I agree with that. I couldn't hear anything on the definitive diving attempt in center field, but that thing from the get-go just didn't look like it was going to end well. He was in between. I thought he was in between the entire time. Yeah, on the dive, it was like, do I? You got to make that read and go. If you're going to make that play, you can't kind of pussyfoot your way into that play. You got to commit.
Yeah, I've seen him make that play so many times, and to be honest, it was surprising that he didn't make it. And it was a tough play. I mean, he had to slide for it and just completely whiffed on it.
Yeah, I was surprised, Cody. He didn't get his glove on it, even knock it down.
To let the ball get behind him.
It happens. It happened there, and it's unfortunate. It happened that led to some Angels getting some runs, and they 2-0. We talked about it yesterday that it wasn't going to be an easy game. José Soriano on the mound. He's their best pitcher. He looked really good. The weather wasn't going to allow. This is a guy who throws 70% of his balls are ground balls. You weren't going to get balls up in the air. It was a bad weather night. It just so happened that way. And then the Angels score a run on a leadoff walk, and Bregman gets eaten up at third base.
Yep. And you know what? And then it comes down to the bat of Michael Conforto, who hasn't been a viable Major League Baseball player for years now. And that's what bugged me. He's all mad. Oh, I swung and missed it. Damn it. But you're Michael Conforto. I don't know what anybody was. What is he doing here? Why in the pipeline isn't there somebody about whom we can get more excited late in games if this team is that good?
I think it speaks about how the Cubs feel about Kevin Alcantara. If we want to talk about someone in the minors,
go ahead.
But I've said this a few times. Like, I am surprised Dylan Carlson hasn't even got a plate appearance, and I know that he has struggled, but he has had success at the major league level, and he is 27 years old. At least there's like some upside there with the age, that maybe being with a new organization after a few years struggling with the Cardinals, and I think he was with Baltimore last year, like maybe, but yeah, I don't understand why Conforto's here, other than the fact that Seiya Suzuki is hurt, and they signed him to the minor league deal like the week that Seiya got hurt in Japan during the WBC. So that was the reason. And the thing is too, is when Seiya comes back, I don't think he'll be the first one out.
No, and I think the Conforto signing, I mean, he's a veteran guy that was with teams that has playoff experience. So I get it. He was an emergency guy. He was a body to fill a roster. You talk about younger guys in the minors, Dan, and it goes back to a conversation we had early on in late in the baseball season on DBU about pitchers and young arms, and how there's only so many bullets in those guns, and you got to use those guys, get those guys up. For me, with batting and with fielding, it's opposite. And if there are things to learn and things to develop and grow, that's where you do that. Like, a guy who throws 102, you're not going to teach him a whole lot if he already throws 102. Get him up to the majors and, use those bullets in that gun. For guys that hit and field, they have to develop and grow and learn the game, be able to get to that major. So I'm gonna trust the organization to make those decisions. Not yet. I mean, are the Cubs going to win or lose a division because Michael Conforto's on the roster? No. Like, I don't want to get too bogged down in one guy on the roster. If they don't win the division, it's not going to be because Michael Conforto was signed early in the year.
No, but it is representative of something, and I'm mindful of a piece that was written last week by Matthew Trueblood at Northside Baseball, and his larger thesis is that Jed Hoyer is bad at building benches, and he doesn't really mention Conforto so much as the fact that Scott Kingery at 32 made the team, and then there is this list of Jed Hoyer bench names. If you've got a barf bag with you, I suggest
it's not good. So
I suggest you unfold it and keep it in your lap in case it's needed. An oxygen mask will drop from the ceiling. Place over your nose and mouth and breathe normally. 2021, Eric Sogard, 78 games, slashed 249, 283, 314. 2022, Jonathan Villar, Michael Hermosillo, Clint Frazier. 2023, Trey Mancini, Eric Hosmer, Edwin Rios. 2024, Patrick Wisdom, Miles Mastrobuoni, Nick Madrigal, and then Garrett Cooper. 2025, Justin Turner, Gage Workman, and Vidal Brujan. And this
wasn't Nick Madrigal your starting third baseman opening day?
Oh, yes.
In 2023, he was.
Yeah.
2024, he was definitely more of a bench guy, I believe, because they tried out Morrell at third base, finally.
But here we are now again. Tyler Austin got hurt. Michael Conforto, Dylan Carlson, Chas McCormick. And all it takes is one injury to Seiya Suzuki, and you're into another bad bench. It's no good.
I'll say this. I personally was really excited about Tyler Austin. Like, it was a different way to build the bench. It wasn't just some veteran who had struggled for a handful of years at the major league game. This was a guy who had been in Japan for like the last handful of years and was mashing baseballs the last 2 years for sure. In Japan, I know he's 34, but they signed Justin Turner, who was 40 years old. So 6-year difference to come over and basically play the same role as Justin Turner last year. And so when he got hurt, I was pretty bummed about that because, again, he was making $1 million to go be a slugger off the bench and probably only face lefties. The same role that Justin Turner had last year and is 6 years younger. To me, there was more upside with that because of a guy coming over from Japan who once was a top prospect for the Yankees, had some problems with success at Major League Baseball. Coming back with another opportunity, there's some reason to believe that maybe he could at least play that role pretty well. So when he got hurt in the spring, it was a huge bummer to me. So now you have these other guys who I just mentioned, you call them veterans, major leaguers who have struggled the last handful of years. And it's just like, can you find lightning in a bottle with them? And so far, we just haven't seen it. And let's just be honest, no one's really surprised about that.
That argument right there about Austin is that was a good move.
Yeah.
By Jed Hoyer.
I think that was
bring him in as a veteran guy off the bench.
Right.
So what's the whole point of the story then? Is it Jed Hoyer shouldn't be a general manager because he can't build a bench? What's the point? What's the bottom line to it?
I think it's just interesting that this has been a philosophy that has not worked all that well necessarily.
Okay, then what I'd be curious to ask is what general managers have built a great bench that has led to a World Series?
Well, let me just if you ask, I'll answer your question directly.
Okay, sure.
This is the last line of Trueblood's piece, where he says he uses Kingery as the example here, sponging up a spot on a team with playoff aspirations. So this is a once moderately hyped prospect, but he was a bust. His only significant playing time since the pandemic was with last year's Angels. It is a galling error in team building to have Scott Kingery on this roster, even if it's only for a fortnight. It's a stark reminder of Jed Hoyer's consistent inability to keep up with, among others, the rival Milwaukee Brewers, who perennially find lots of value at the bottom of their roster and with low-level pickups. That's why the Brewers have run circles around the Cubs for the last half-decade. And if they beat Chicago out for a fourth straight division title in 2026, it will be for the same reason. He said the Cubs must do better at this. but they extended Hoyer last summer. The decision maker will remain the same. Hoyer needs to do some serious self-evaluation and improve as a reinforcer of his positional core, but it's already too late to put the pieces in place as well as he should have for this year.
I would say that the philosophy with the bench that has always given me some frustration, I think is a good way to say it, is they clearly want to play their top prospects or high-end minor league players. They want to play them every day in AAA instead of stashing them on the bench and just not playing consistently unless there's an injury. But like I said, it is telling that they didn't give Alcantara an opportunity considering the injury to Seiya Suzuki. And Alcantara's already debuted. So, I mean, the service time, wherever it's at, I don't have his numbers up, but you get what I'm saying. Like, he's coming off a pretty meh year in the minors last year. He's off to a good start in AAA now, so it kind of, in hindsight, looks bad. But going into the season, I don't think any Cubs fan was begging for Kevin Alcantara to get an opportunity. I think more Cubs fans were curious to see how Shaw was going to do in right field, and maybe see a mixture of Carlson and Conforto, but mostly Shaw. And it's just been a combination of the three. So I think Craig Counsell is just trying to figure that out. But again, Seiya Suzuki's going to probably be back in a week. So the right field thing, we're going to talk about it a ton here to start the year because it looks like a glaring hole right now because no one in that position is producing.
Yeah, it is a glaring hole. Yeah.
Right. And when Seiya comes back, it won't be that way. I think it'll just be interesting to see how Counsell gets guys like Shaw and Ballesteros in the lineup when Seiya Suzuki is back. But to me, like right now, when Seiya comes back, Scott Kingery is the first one off the roster. And I think that would be surprising for Cubs fans to hear me say that because of how bad Conforto has been. But Shaw can just sit in that same role that Kingery currently has. And there's more upside with him, 6 years of control, all these things that we've talked about. So, yeah.
Right. Or you just want to have Shaw be good enough to move him at the deadline for a starting pitcher. Because he's going to be valuable. This draft pedigree, his age, the experience he's already had, that the ideal situation for this year's Cubs team might be that he plays well enough that he becomes your pitching fortification.
Yeah, I don't see them moving Matt Shaw. I just don't, because I think if they're trying him out in right field to use him as a corner outfielder and to see how that can develop and grow, and he can also play multiple infield positions if there is an injury. He's a guy that'll be on the bottom of your roster. Go back to your philosophy about having AAA players, minor league players. Would you rather have them stashed on the bench to get some occasional at-bats or playing every day in the minors? I would rather have them playing every day in the minors if they don't feel they're ready to be an everyday major league player. I don't know how you develop by sitting on the bench.
Yeah, there's a line with it. I think there were moments last year, especially in the second half, where the entire offense outside of Ian Happ and Matt Shaw were struggling. And you had Kyle Tucker dealing with the hand injury, and they let him play through it, that whole storyline. PCA really fell off in the second half. Even Seiya struggled most of the second half. So you had Owen Casey and Moises Ballesteros just hanging out on the bench, just hanging out. Especially and they played the veterans over those guys, but whenever the entire offense is struggling, my frustration is that we're just doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, so I understand that.
I wouldn't say right now is something that's the thing, but I'm saying throughout the season there are stretches where I feel like they could change that philosophy a little bit,
Yeah, and if they want, they could move a guy up for a certain period of time. But when the rosters expand, yeah, I'm all for bringing guys up, obviously. And if they don't get everyday playing time, then that's just how it goes. But that's the benefit of expanding your roster. So I'd rather have those guys play every day until they say, "Yep, this guy's ready for the major league level." That's what you have to trust the organization to be able to do that. I went through, Dan and Cody, and I looked at last year's NL playoff teams. And I looked at bench players, and I did a really rudimentary type evaluation of bench players. And I looked at guys that were on playoff team benches that had an OPS plus of 100 or more.
Okay.
With a minimum plate appearances of 150. So very, very elemental type evaluation of it.
Yeah, but that's a pretty illustrative broad brush, I would say.
Okay, so on the Dodgers, there's one guy that fit those qualifications, Miguel Rojas. Cubs had 0. Their closest guy was Reese McGuire with a 94 OPS plus with 140 plate appearances. Right. Justin Turner was a 75 with 191 plate appearances. Milwaukee had 2 guys. And if you would have guessed that this guy would have had a 141 OPS plus, you would have been the only person on the planet, including Andrew Vaughn.
Andrew Vaughn, I was just going to say.
Who was a 141 with 254 plate appearances. Jake Bowers had a 111 OPS plus. And the Phillies, there was 2. Edmundo Sosa and Harrison Bader. Padres had 1. Ramon Laureano at a 122 with 198 plate appearances, and the Reds had 0. So it's not like other general managers or other teams are building these benches of superstar everyday players, because if they were, they'd be somewhere playing every day, maybe on that team or somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So while I get and I understand what's being said about Jed Hoyer, but the reason why the Cubs didn't beat the Brewers last year, and you could argue about being at home or being away, was because you had guys in the playoffs, PCA who had a 399 OPS, Swanson a 434 OPS, Shaw was a 436, Happ was a 490, Kelly 519, Kyle Tucker 745, Justin Steele missed the whole season, Cade Horton missed the playoffs. He was your best pitcher in the second half of the season. Shota Imanaga was not the same pitcher after he came back from that injury. So you can talk about the bench all you want, and if you want to make that your focal point of why Jed Hoyer has made some bad decisions or anything to be detrimental about the general manager, it's not about building the bench. If your 1 through 9 isn't getting it done, I don't care who's on your bench. I really don't.
Well, if it's going to be, go ahead, Cody.
I was just going to say, to push back a little bit on it, is that you'd like to have some of those guys on your bench be able to give some of those guys you just mentioned, Matt, a day off, and maybe they're not so run down by the end of the year. I will say though, in that Milwaukee series, and we all watched, I mean, the pitching that Milwaukee had.
Oh, it was the pitching, right. I mean, you get guys one after another throwing 100, 102.
Right.
And I'll look at Justin Turner. So was Justin Turner a great signing? He was great for the clubhouse. He was a great teammate. He was great on the bench. And he played first. He played outfield. He played third. I mean, he relieved guys when he needed to. Could he have been a little better? Yeah, of course. Of course he could have been. But tell me a roster in the National League that has a guy like that is an everyday quality player that sits on the bench.
I also think it is something that if it is a glaring weakness and there's clearly an imbalance, you can address that at the deadline. There will be you can start picking over the non-competitive teams for viable major league talent that should be relatively inexpensive. And I also do want to add that using OPS plus is a perfect offensive stat, that doesn't give us the components of defense and base running that also make up bench value.
And that's why I said it was very, very elemental. And I was looking at.
I'm glad you did. I'm not
criticizing
criticizing your technique. I'm just
Dan, it was funny because I knew you would say something about defense, and I started looking, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to get too deep into this, and it's like I got to get some coffee going and get down here and get ready. So
no worries, man. It's all good. The dude abides.
Now I know you have another thought about yesterday's game.
Well, I just have one thing about if
one
we're,
guy, yeah.
If we're gonna be if this is Slap Jed Day. If we're just going to be beating up poor Jed here on the first day of Passover, sorry, buddy.
I'll hug him. You guys can slap him.
That the going to the well for former Astros high leverage relievers has not worked out all that well. In that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I called it when I saw Hector Neris, and I said Hector Neris is a pain. Yes. I said he's a pain in my ass, and I don't want to see him anymore, and I don't like him. And then eventually I was right. And then last year when I saw Ryan Presley, and I said, well, he can't throw a strike, and when he does throw a strike, it's headed the opposite direction too quickly. I don't like that either. I would say incomplete grade from the big stage last night for Phil Maton. I thought he had it. I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
And then one bad pitch is what gets you stung there when that thing's hit 110 miles an hour off the bat. But I hope maybe this is the one. This is the former Astro high leverage reliever who later in his career as a Cub is going to come through.
You can buy in on it.
At some point, he's going to be right on this.
All right, let me ask you guys a question because you're both baseball smart. Phil Maton, are his arms like 8 inches long, or is there something weird about the delivery that I'm seeing things incorrectly? He looks like a T-Rex arms when he throws. I don't understand what's happening. Like, that's all I see now is like T-Rex arms on the mound.
No,
what's happening?
Do you remember Juan Cruz?
Oh yeah, I remember him.
Do you remember Juan Cruz, the little hard throwing guy?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes guys just look like that, and
okay, so that's just how he looks.
Some guys
I think it's just how he looks.
It's not my TV. Okay.
You'd have to see it from the batter's perspective to know, because usually you'd think, long arms are better because the release is closer to the plate. But
all right, so this is the problem I'm having. And Cody, welcome into our weird world. So now all I see is the T-Rex from Toy Story on the mound when Phil Maton's on with that voice.
That's
all I
Wallace
hear
Shawn,
now.
right? Isn't that Wallace Shawn?
I don't know. Is that who is?
Yeah.
I don't know who is.
I think so. Is it the same? The same guy who played Vicini in Princess Bride?
Oh, is it really?
Yes.
That's all I hear now is the T-Rex voice when Maton's on the mound. So, all right, I'll look at it again. Maybe I'll get a different TV. Maybe my second TV will be better.
Yeah, he's called Rex. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, but yeah, the guy's name. This is too long. You know what? You can't just find a quick answer anymore. I don't want to be on Pixar fandom Toy Storyopedia.
Go to racist Google. You'll get it right away.
Oh, I gotta scroll down the whole thing. I don't need all of his lines and all the pictures of him. Just tell me who his damn voice is.
As far as Phil
Wallace Shawn.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, it is Wallace Shawn. He has provided the voice for Rex since 1995.
Okay, good.
Okay.
There.
As far as Maton as the pitcher for the Chicago Cubs, he almost got out of it, but he's pitched pretty well the first couple outings, so I'm not really worried about him. He's he's fascinating in many ways because he's put up really good numbers as someone who doesn't throw hard out of the bullpen, and he's been getting a lot of swing and miss as someone who doesn't throw hard out of the bullpen. Which, if you follow the Cubs,
they love that.
Yeah, they love the non-hard throwing guys who still get whiffs. It's very fascinating that they don't want to adjust that time. Outside of Daniel Palencia, who he throws gas, but
it's like they're trying to prove something. Like, we can find the guys that don't throw hard that can still get swings and misses.
Right?
Look how smart we are.
Right. Mm-hmm. They did sign Hunter Harvey this offseason too, who does throw hard. So I think there's a good mixture in there. I thought Hobie Milner came in last night, and I think he's just going to be like your other version of Caleb Thielbar this year, where he comes in, faces the lefty to get out of an inning or something. I thought he did a good job.
He did a nice job last night getting out of that jam. 35-year-old that looks 18.
Yeah. But I would say last night's loss for sure is just more so on the offense. 4 hits. The Angels scored 2 runs, but terrible weather. You can look at it a few different ways, but hopefully the offense bounces back today. Soriano, like you said at the top, really good. They get Kikuchi this afternoon, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, one quick follow-up on something I said yesterday on Off the Ivy. We was talking about runners in scoring position early on here through the first, 4 games? And I'd mentioned that they were 11 of 44 for a runners in scoring position average of 249. And I was kind of getting down and negative on that, but followed back through last night, because this is what you can do, Dan. You can say something and then look up the stats behind it to either back it up or support it, or say, hey, I was wrong about something. And I was wrong about criticizing that 249 average with runners in scoring position was one of the highest in Major League Baseball last year. Mm-hmm. At 249 last year, they were in the top 5. They were actually 5th in hits in Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position.
Wow.
So, I criticized it a bit. It was, it's right on where they should have been and where they were last year, so I can't criticize that. Now, going 0 for 4 last night with 7 left on base, they're 11 of 48 through 5 with runners in scoring position at 229 average. So, yeah, that'll bounce back up to that 250, 260 area. And if they do that again this year, they'll be one of the best teams in baseball. So I was wrong on that, yeah.
Well, I'd also add, too, if we're just talking about last night, that if you're telling me that the season is going to come down to the quality of defense that will be provided by the 2 guys who didn't have it last night in PCA and Bregman, but I'm good. I'm confident that that's not going to be an ongoing issue that costs them games.
One other thing from last night's game I wanted to ask both of you guys about, I jotted down in my notes. There was a play last night. Adele was at the plate. First of all, I failed to mention JD's reference to Adele rolling in the deep on Monday night. It was completely overlooked, and it was a great reference. But He was at the plate last night. There was a called strike that was clearly a ball, and he just shook his head and didn't challenge it. And then Swanson last night, bottom of the ninth, no strikes on him. There was a called strike that was a ball, and he didn't challenge it. And JD and Shambi started talking about it, about making a comment about how, maybe these guys just aren't quite in a rhythm of being able to challenge, or maybe if they forgot to do it. That's an ideal time right there with one challenge left, bottom of the ninth, a called strike that wasn't a strike that would have been 3-0 count. What do you guys think the process is for teams with guys? I'd love to know what their philosophy is. Hey, you can challenge whenever you want. You can't. We'll signal you, because you've got to do it right away. You can't take a beat.
This is a whole show. We got to
think about it.
Well, we need to save
I wonder
this.
too, Dan. Hang on. Are teams prepping now going into games based on the umpire? Because I texted you last night, Guccione had 4 challenges going into last night's game. 3 were overturned.
We don't have enough data yet.
Stuff
Yep.
now. I wonder how much data is needed for a department or an individual within a team to say, hey, here's the breakdown on the ABS chart going into tonight.
I don't think every team would agree. I think you're all over the map right now. It's a Wild West. We've never done this before. And I know that the Brewers' idea of the color-coded cards got shot down by MLB.
Yes.
And I think all, remember, the 1-1 pitch and the 3-2 pitch. The 2-2, 1-1, 3-2, and you tell a good hitter, use the challenge. A bad hitter, we're going to save it for a good hitter. So I don't know if they have the conversations that directly. I don't know if the moment you leave the on-deck circle, you either have a green light or a red light, and someone just tells you yes or no. Or I have absolutely no idea the specific Cubs mechanism for challenging once that batter leaves, for the batter's box. I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to hear their directed philosophy on it and what their thought process is, and maybe it's developing and evolving as you get more data with it. But you have to be able to take the umpire into consideration going into a game. You have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's more than just like holding on to them for late in the game in a big spot, right? Like I think that most of the challenges based off plays in the field, a lot of managers hold on to those challenges for a moment later in the game. ABS, it is, like Dan said, kind of an evolving thing. We're wild west right now, trying to figure out the best way to utilize this. You only get two challenges, right? Like, gotta use it at the best times. You said it was ninth inning yesterday.
It was a ninth inning. There was one out, and they still had one challenge left. Swanson's up, and it was a 2-0 count, and it was low and away, and it was out of the strike zone. And if you would have challenged it, it would have been a 3-0 count. I mean, it's bottom of the ninth. You got one left. You're not saving it for extra innings. Yeah. So,
and no harm on that particular play eventually, though, because I think he did walk before Conforto struck out. But
yeah.
So, no,
but it was just interesting because JD and Shambi brought it up there. Like, he asked the question: do you think guys are forgetting to use it as you're in, because they're not in that rhythm or that groove yet of like, oh yeah, this is something I have. This is an extra tool I have at the plate now because it's all brand new. A couple other things too from the game last night. Jordan Romano, the closer for the Angels, is he weird on the mound?
Yes, he's talking to himself the whole time.
Right?
He's talking to
himself. Okay.
Yes.
And even his body movement, his leg kick, he's real jittery. Yeah, it's really strange. And I don't know if you guys heard this last night too. One shutout all of last year at Wrigley for the Cubs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, one shutout, and they already have one now in 2020.
They already have one now, and then there was I generally, I'm not, generally when the game's over, I turn off right away, but I was doing some stuff in the kitchen, had the post game on. I don't know if you guys caught this stat, and it's a very specific stat, though. It was, since August 9th of last year, with a minimum of 35 innings pitched, they had the top 5 pitchers in baseball, the lowest ERA. It went Skubal, Max Fried, Yamamoto, and then Jameson Taillon at 1.38 and Cade Horton at 1.72.
All right.
Thought it stood out because I thought that Taillon looked pretty good yesterday, even though 4 2/3. I want a little bit more. I know that's how the game's going right now, but he looked decent, got out of some stuff, and it was fine.
We made it this far without mentioning him, which I feel bad because I think it's a big deal that the performance he put up last time, because he was awful in the spring, and I know that spring numbers don't matter, and he's a veteran, a pitcher, and all this and that, but the fastball velocity was down in the spring. So for me, it's a stepping stone for him. And he even spoke to the media about how like the WBC played a part in him like trying to ramp up too fast or something like that. I don't have the exact quotes, but in front of me, but there was the way his getting ready for the season this year was different. I think that's probably why his spring was pretty bad, but it's good to see him go out there. It helps whenever the wind's blowing in, but if you look his numbers historically at Wrigley Field as a Cub, like he's been awesome at home.
Yeah,
so
I can't believe it's been his fourth year with the Cubs already. Like, isn't that crazy?
It was a 4 years, $60 million deal. I think he's lived up to it perfectly. I mean, he struggled the first half of the year, but since the second half of 2023, I think he's just
he's been good. He's been good for the team.
Everything that you want in a 4 to 5 starter. You know,
I liked the matchup when it was Jamer and Jamo and Jamo and Jamer, and then Boog and JD saying, "I hope he gets jammed here." So it could be Jamo jams Jamer. So there's and then I also liked looking up at the screen and seeing Brown Trout, because there was the Brown Trout matchup that I was looking at. So.
That's good.
He pitched good too. I'm really hard on Ben Brown. So good outing last night. Way to get through 3 1/3, and I mean bunch of strikeouts. So really important outing for him last night. I thought coming in relief.
All right, that's your getaway day for Angels Cubs off the Ivy. That is Delmendo, Abaticola. I'm Bernstein, and this is 312 Sports.
Off the Ivy, a Chicago Cubs podcast with Dan Bernstein, Matt Abaticola, and Cody Delmendo on 312 Sports.